How's it going, everybody, and welcome to episode 315 of Master My Garden podcast. Now, this week's episode is one that we've covered over the last couple of years, and it's where we're doing a preview of the GLDA conference or seminar. And over the last few years, the subjects of the meeting of these seminars has been very brave, forward thinking. So the GLDA are a series of garden designers, but they're conscious of what's happening in the world. Last year's conference, I attended that myself. It was excellent, and there was a lot of things spoke about in relation to slowing down water, the SUDS, talking about SUDS and slowing down water within urban environments, about planting in urban environments, and all of that is really relevant going forward, and given the weather conditions that we have. And this year's seminar is called the Interconnection of All Things, and I suppose the overview of it, and Kinta will tell us all about that now in a minute, but the overview of it is that, you know, these garden designers are conscious of their part in the interconnection of all things. We're looking at things like biodiversity loss, habitats collapsing and so on. And where does plants and where does gardens and where does garden design sit amongst that? So that's, again, a really forward thinking and brave subject to be talking about. And to preview the whole event, I'm delighted to be joined by Kinta and Marion from the GLDA, and they're going to give us, the overview and also go through the speakers one by one. So you're very, very welcome to Master My Garden podcast.
Thanks very much, John. I would like to talk initially about the inspiration for the interconnectedness of all things. I was watching a documentary by, I hope you get his name right here now, Macon, and
Oh yeah.
it was called "Listen to the Land Speak." And I've been meaning to watch it, and I watched it, and the guy just blew me away.
Mm,
He really did. I mean, he was talking about connection to the landscape through the Irish language, and like he's written a book, 32 words for field, and he connects through the Irish language to landscape, but also through mythology and our forebears that actually used the landscape to grow crops, to know what time of year it was and things like that. So um, we need to recreate that connection back for ourselves, back to our plants and back to our landscapes.
yeah.
Um, so he used a lovely word actually, and it was an Irish word, and this really intrigued me as well. It's called sui, I hope I pronounce it right, sui tu, it describes the sound of the sea sucking in and out. Um,
Okay.
and all of a sudden you're put into a place with one word, one Irish word,
Mm,
uh, where the sea is coming in, you can hear the stones rolling and it's going back out again. And it's very sort of, it involves all your senses, that one
mm,
word. So I found that very, very intriguing. Um, so he was actually the inspiration for this. And I was quite shocked to see in the documentary that he was unwell and he passed a lot quicker than I expected him to.
yeah. Yeah, no, he was amazing. I'm not going to pull you up in your Irish pronunciation because
I
mine
know I can't. I'm
couldn't be
Australian.
any better, to be honest with you. But yeah, so he was absolutely brilliant at bringing you to a place or describing feelings and connecting that back to, as you say, Irish mythology and connection to the land and connection to nature. And he was also forward thinking in that, right, he knows the type, or he knew the type of harm that we have as a species have been doing. But he was also forward thinking in talking about what can be done and so on. So yeah,
Mm.
that kind of links well with what you guys are trying to cover on the
Yeah.
seminar.
Well, he actually brings up in halfway through the first hour is the health of the river. I mean, that if we have a healthy river, we have healthy habitats either side of it. And
Hmm.
that connects all the way back to the urban environment.
Yeah.
And I know that, our Dublin City Council are doing a lot of work at the Talca River at the moment with regards to that,
Hmm.
so he was spot on. And
Hmm.
that's where he blew me away. So I think Marion's going to talk about the plant
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah, thanks, Kinta. Hi, John. Yeah, so
Right.
I'm a Gaeilgeoir,
Brilliant.
so I can pronounce all those words properly. So he is Monchon McGann, and I knew Monchon actually. I worked with him once or twice, but he was amazing, and it was so sad that he passed away so quickly in the end, but so young.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I in one of the Instagram post somebody's, when they were people talking about how sad it was that he had died. And I said, I just put in a little small one-liner saying he would have been Monaghan for president. He would have made an amazing Irish president. And it got so many likes, so many people. He just resonated with all of us. What he has done that in his books is that he has brought about an interconnection with us back to our landscape and back to our roots of our language, which is what sets us apart from every other culture, as an indigenous language does. The language was born out of the land, and we are farmers. Well, we're not now, sure we're not, but that's ultimately what the people on this island were, farmers. So of course they were going to be looking and not sort of educated in the formal sense. So of course people were going to be looking at the plants and at the trees and at the clouds to see, is it going to rain, like these weather apps. We've become so sort of dependent on technology, but like it's such an unreal world. But that is the thing then with our seminar, and that's why when Kinta was telling me about the origins of the concept behind the seminar, this interconnection that we have with all things, and really the plants are the poster boy, if you like, for that interconnection back to nature. And trees are within that plant world as well. And it's so important. It's aesthetically beautiful, they look gorgeous. But then we have to go deeper within ourselves and say, when you do stand in nature, lie down in long grass or look up at trees, we have a physical reaction to that. We feel better. It's good for our well-being. And we're really divorced from that in this 21st century world. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that so much of that is to do with being on social media too much, or being really dependent on technology and just not getting out into nature. Now, it's tricky on days like this where it's pouring rain while we're all talking nicely about this. But yeah, I mean, plants really are the unsung heroes in that web of life. And they're the main players. Plants support every bit of life in every corner of the world for our food. And, even the air that we breathe is all dependent on plants. So, and then also as garden designers and landscape architects and landscape designers in the GLDA, that it's so important. Like, we really have to shout from the hilltops or the tops of the skyscraper buildings. Nature is under threat, really important, and it's up to us to, educate ourselves on how to make it better. And also when we're dealing with clients, how important it is for us to be, delivering that message. Even if it's for carbon capture or SUDS, sustainable urban drainage systems. I always have to try and remember exactly what SUDS stands for. All these kind of buzzwords, is it sustainable garden? We have to really sort of pare it all back and go back to the plants. That's what the basis of nature is all about. And just how interconnected that our quality of life is with that of the landscapes that we live in and that we work in, and also that we play in. We have to really remind ourselves of that, because God, ultimately, I suppose it is us humans, like for so long that we've attempted to control nature. And I guess that's partly what maybe some of gardening can be about. But in doing that, well, we haven't really gotten to a great place with climate change and with the breakdown in species loss and biodiversity. It's just failing all around us. And when we see these really, really very, very tough storms happening, it's such a wake-up call. And it's very, very important to, like, I suppose as well that nature-based solutions is another buzz term. But honestly, that is what all of this is about. And that's how a lot of the speakers that we have chosen and have asked to be part of our seminar, they are very much embedded in this way of thinking. So that we'll be hearing about things like in historic gardens as well as very, very old gardens, but new gardens, and it doesn't matter what space you have, and in urban situations, and how plants are really the gatekeepers to the answers to these climate issues.
Yeah, you mentioned something there. Um, we need to educate ourselves and we need to educate our clients. And I think that captures exactly, as I said at the start, I think you generally choose topics that are brave and forward thinking. Um, and this is no different. So you can understand, like from your perspective now, you call to a client and they're
Hmm.
all in at the moment is the porcelain tiles, the outdoor kitchen, essentially the
Mm.
garden rooms, the artificial grass in certain cases, and so on. And okay, over the last number of years, there definitely has been a move in terms of plants towards the
Mm.
softer mixing native and non-native.
Mm.
But there is definitely still, as you said, educating ourselves and educating our clients on
Sure.
how important all these little patches around the country are. These gardens that we have, be they urban or rural, that they
Yeah.
have a part to play in this bigger conversation.
Exactly. And if we're not, as I say, singing from the hilltops, well, then, I mean, who else is going to do it? We really, us garden designers and landscape designers, we are at the coalface. We really are. But and it can be a bit overwhelming. But that's why we at the GLDA, why we do our seminar, because why we always, and we're so careful about the topic of the seminar because it has to be brave. Like we had Mary Reynolds a couple of years ago, and we don't know who was more terrified, her or us. But, I mean, she stood at the top and she said, guys, we really have to look at how we design gardens. And we know that, and we are all changing our way of doing that. And you're always listening to a client. We talk about this stuff incessantly, quite nerdy, we really do. But we are stewards of the living world
Mm.
Yeah,
of
but I think we
designers.
also, yeah, I think we also have to realize that our gardens are our gardens, but we also have to share them, with insects, habitats, the plants create the habitats and the biodiversity in the garden. They also have the ability, as you say, to clean air, but also to clean water. And they shape our landscapes culturally as well. So
Mm.
there's a huge interconnectedness there with everything. And there's also sort of serendipitous sort of opportunities with plants to create medicine for us as well. So if we're wiping out our plants, there's the opportunity lost for, discovery of new medicines and things like that. So we have to bring the plants right up, uh,
Mhm.
into the foreground because they are what's doing all the work. The other thing is that there was a term that was coined in 1999 by two botanists in America called plant blindness. And there will be a lot of people that are not aware of the natural environment around us. They're not even aware that's a
Yeah.
tree or that's a plant, but they don't realize what those plants and trees are doing for our environment.
Mhm.
And I
That's
suppose
probably that's probably
sorry,
way more true now than it was. When did you say that was coined in 1999?
yeah,
It's probably way more true now because there is, generally speaking, a disconnection with the natural world
yeah,
in most generations.
yeah,
And that disconnection seems to be, or the gap between connection and disconnection seems to be getting wider as generations move through.
yeah.
So, there is an onus on us all now to start reversing that, I think.
Yes.
And it's important that we don't get very negative and down and
Oh, yeah.
overwhelmed because
Yeah.
that happens in a heartbeat.
Hmm.
Everybody goes, those kids, they don't understand that everything on their pizza has actually come out of the soil at some point. And
Yeah.
honestly, like when you are te are talking to youngsters and you say, "Do you realize how dependent your pizza or your burger is on soil?" And they're looking at you, they just don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No.
The connection, the tin of beans,
Yeah.
it is very anyway, but and that again is why we have the seminar every year where it is upbeat and where we bring This is another thing where we bring international speakers over and they talk about these particular issues and subjects because they're speaking about them in their countries. This is not just a small group of people in Ireland banging on about this stuff. This is global. And to the point of we have Lulu, Urquhart and Adam Hunt speaking, and they have actually been part of a new conference that started, I think it was on about 2 weeks ago in Manchester called Wilding Gardens. And that had, myself and Kinta were talking about this earlier on. It was almost like a reunion of past GLDA seminar speakers. They had Tom Stewart Smith was at it, and Fergus Garrett of Dixter, James Hitchmo, John Little, Nigel Dunnett, I could go on, and Isabella Tree. So all of those people who are talking about wilding and rewilding, and that's a bit of another catchphrase, but it's all basically the same kind of connection to nature and back to the plants, really.
Yeah. You've mentioned these speakers, and there's quite a list again this year, some really high profile. Maybe you might, start going through these and outline the topic of their individual talks within the overall seminar.
Sure. So we have, as I just said there, Lulu Urquhart and Adam Hunt are our first two speakers. So they have a company together. They were described in they are British. Okay, so Lulu lives, I think, in Cornwall. I can't remember, in south of
Somerset.
Dorset. And
No,
Adam,
Somerset.
Somerset. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
excuse me. And then Adam lives in Cork in Ireland.
Okay.
So as far as I know, they've got two offices there. But they were described in GQ magazine recently as Britain's coolest gardeners. So, and so their main thrust really is ecology and rewilding. So they are very, very, they did a show garden in Chelsea in 2022 called Rewilding Britain Landscape. And it was the Beaver Garden, I think, is really what everybody knew it as. It won gold and all that kind of stuff, but also won Best in Show. And it was highlighting the really important role that the beaver plays in as an ecosystem engineer, basically, in landscape restoration. And their garden, we don't need to go on too much into the detail about it, but again, it was all about cleaning water. And if you allow beavers into a river, just by it making a dam, it makes all these different little chambers in it, and the babies can swim through it, and it basically filters the water, but it also so that the water is cleaner than for further down river for other species. But also then the wetlands on the sides of the river become a much more, I suppose, better place for other species to grow as well.
Yeah.
So it's this, there's that wolf
interconnection.
Yeah, exactly. And the wolf thing as well about over in the States. But it's so anyway, so Lulu and Adam are going to be talking to us on the day as well about bringing nature back into gardens to restore biodiversity through ecological design and landscape-led thinking. So, and really for resilience, and that these are resilience to the climate change and capturing more carbon and all those massive big issues, but how everybody can do it in a smaller space.
Yeah.
Okay. And Galen Fulford, is sorry, John, I cut you off there.
No, you're okay. You're okay. You go ahead.
He's an inventor and an environmental entrepreneur, and he has a company called Biomatrix Water, and it's about making floating gardens, basically, to clean water systems that have been highly polluted. And it's a modular system, so you can make it as big as you like or as small as you like. He's done projects all around the world. He's doing a project. He's currently looking at doing a project at the moment in the Dublin Docklands. And what's interesting about that is that the docklands are there, but he creates walkways between the floating gardens, and he brings nature back into for people in the city, in the urban area, because it's quite a hard environment, in Dublin City or even in London. In Eden Dock, he's created some stunning gardens there and timber walkways and seating. And so the office workers come down for lunch and they're sitting there right in the middle of this, birds are nesting, and it's cleaning the water as well, which is incredible. So
So this is a floating garden.
a floating garden, yeah. So he does
Wow.
rivers and canals and, as I say, docklands as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it creates a huge biodiversity environment around which wouldn't be there otherwise.
Yeah, yeah.
And also it's an amenity for people to enjoy.
Well,
So birds are nesting and insects are coming in and it's fantastic.
yeah, it's creating an ecosystem or putting a new ecosystem into a place that's basically has no ecosystems except for possibly some element of a water ecosystem. If you're talking about the Dublin Docklands, for example,
Yeah,
but to add in a new ecosystem, and it can be really difficult to do that in places like that because everywhere's concreted over and there's buildings and storage and
that's right.
sheds and yards. So how do you get any type of ecosystem going there? Well, that's a brilliant example. I hadn't seen or come across that before.
No, it's very, very clever. He actually did an article for us in our magazine there, not the last one, the previous one. Um, so these floating platforms were initially designed to tackle highly contaminated waterways to bring them back to life.
Yeah.
But they were much more than providing tranquil green space for the people and communities who live nearby. So these projects are a wonderful example of interconnectedness and how working in collaboration with nature rather than against it to
Hmm.
tackle individual problems that shape our landscapes and waterways in positive ways. So
Yeah.
it's yeah. And in a recent interview, Galen spoke about how his approach is all about giving nature a chance to do the work. All of these components are purely about giving nature the toehold that it needs to thrive and flourish and to do what it does best, powered by photosynthesis, biology, and ecology, rather than flocculants and chemicals. So
Wow.
I think there's some issues down in the Shannon there. I think he could use some of his work
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
in the Shannon.
And up in Lough Neagh in Belfast as well, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Interconnection
it's
of
highly polluted. Yeah,
Yeah,
And they're talking about that at the moment. They're finding it really hard to find any type of long-term solution, but
yeah,
it's incredible. I've seen photographs, and it's not like it's obviously some form of algae, but it's a really strange green as well. Like
yeah,
it's a luminous looking. It's looks very
yeah.
toxic actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very toxic. I don't know if it's true or not, but I did hear that a dog drank from it and the dog died. So
Right.
it's very, very bad.
Yeah. It
And
looks it looks horrible. Like it doesn't look like something you could drink or you could bathe in or anything like that. It looks,
but
as I
think
say,
about,
a
yeah,
luminous green.
we can't use that water, but
Mm.
think about the poor fish and the
Yeah,
poor
yeah, who have to.
who have to try and
Yeah,
live there, and
yeah,
they're not
yeah,
living there. It's becoming like a dead zone,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. You can see the interconnection. You've both mentioned it as you're talking about the first couple of speakers, the interconnection. So yeah, it's creating these, and as you said, once nature gets the chance, it will come back and it will move into areas. So
Yeah,
to give it something to connect to in the first place is what's important. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah. And to reconnect nature with how it's supposed to be as well. I
Yeah.
mean, we have to really remind ourselves that our good health is intrinsically linked to the good health of the planet. And the
Hmm.
planet is only going to be healthy if we treat it that way.
Yeah.
It's just we're so
yeah.
interconnected. We just need to be reminded of it more and more. And Neil Porteous is another one of our speakers, and he's going to be talking about plants for Irish gardens for the 21st century. Now, Neil is one of those people, he's a garden historian, but also landscape management and horticulturist. He's from the north of Ireland. He's worked with the National Trust for years, and he was in Mount Stewart in County Down. He's worked with the OPW. He's worked all over Ireland. If you've got a castle, Neil is your man, basically.
Right, yeah.
And he speaks about managing and designing, but redesigning in a very ecological way as well. Any of these big estates and large scale gardens like Blarney Castle and Clandeboy, which is that's up in Bangor in the north. He's worked in Mount Stewart, obviously, as I said, and also Glenarm Castle in Antrim, but he's also worked in what's the place that's opened up in Waterford, Mount Congreve.
Congreve, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Okay.
really, Neil Porteous, like I say, he's your man for if you've got a bit of an old castle and lots of land. So he's into, like he really is the authoritative voice in garden restoration throughout, like I say, the whole island of Ireland. And yeah, he's an amazing speaker. His passion for plant knowledge is just incredible. But he's also got real practical experience, and he is a garden consultant specialist in heritage properties. I guess that's if you want to really sort of give him his proper title. And his just massive amount of travels and his study of plants and the way that he speaks about it, he's so passionate, it's so infectious, it's great. He's a great speaker. So he very, very kindly stepped in for us only about a couple of weeks ago, because on our original list of speakers, Séamus O'Brien was due to speak. And Séamus was he was the David Attenborough of Ireland, really. He passed away very suddenly and very sadly in the end of December. We were absolutely shocked. Séamus O'Brien was the head of Kilmacurra, which is the kind of the country cousin part of the Botanic Gardens in Glasnevin. Kilmacurra is a big estate that's in County Wicklow and North County, or near British Bay in County Wicklow. Beautiful gardens. And Séamus was its steward and looked after it. And he was very excited. He put up a post at the beginning of December saying that they had finally gotten the OPW to restore the main house. In Kilmacurra. And honestly, the whole gardening industry and the horticultural world were like, that is just amazing. It's fantastic news. And then next thing we heard that he had died suddenly on the 22nd of December. So Séamus would have gone to different parts of the world to do plant expeditions. And I didn't know Séamus, only met him once, and I just thought, now there's a guy I want to spend more time with. He was cheeky and irreverent and just looked like lots of fun. If you wanted to know about how to do a meadow properly, Séamus was the man, He was incredible. And the outpouring and the grief and the sadness and the amazing things that people have said about him online. And he just was this just fantastic presence and fantastic spirit. But Neil Porteous was one of his really good mates. And so they would have gone on expeditions abroad to China, Tibet, Nepal together for years and years. So when we asked Neil, Neil spoke at his funeral. It was a spectacular event, his funeral. All of his staff in Kilmacurra, they all got up and they all took big white candles with them. And they walked down to the altar and they lit all the candles, and then they put all the candles at the back of the altar. And it was such a beautiful moment. Oh, it was really, really something now, really was. But anyway, so Neil, we asked him if he would speak not instead, and not just if he would step in and speak at the seminar. And he said that he would. And we were just so thrilled because it's fitting,
Given that they were good friends, but I personally didn't know Séamus, but I do know of his impact and his status within horticulture in Ireland and globally. And as I mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago, like phenomenal in terms of plant knowledge. sometimes in different fields, you have these experts that can stand on any stage globally. And Séamus was definitely one of them from a horticultural perspective. So, he's a huge loss, obviously, to horticulture and so on. Um, Obviously, thoughts with his family, of course, but from a horticultural perspective, he's a huge loss to Irish horticulture and to world horticulture, to be fair.
And to world horticulture,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And the outpouring of just beautiful words that people have said actually on the RIP.ie page as well, which must be, and look, it's some kind of a comfort to his family, that the love that people had for Séamus was global and deep, meaningful, proper interconnected love, and
Yeah.
regard, and he touched on so many lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will be in for a treat listening to Neil Porteous. He is a fantastic speaker. And he's just really, he's like I say, he's an excellent communicator and he's on demand to be a speaker. And he's been on, BBC Gardener's Question Time and all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have an international star at the
Yeah.
table on the day.
For sure.
And our final speaker is Margie Ruddick, and she's coming in from the States. She lives in New York. She received in 2000, she's been around for a long time and she's been doing this work for a long time, the restoration of landscapes and ecologically, driven. So she, in 2006, received the Rachel Carson Women in Conservation Award. So, as I said, she's been around for a while. Through her design, she aims to reconnect people with the wider natural environment by employing a forward-thinking approach to landscape design. She recently described the times we live in as really tempestuous, both environmentally and socially. Tempestuous, sorry. But she also believes there is a tangible shift to sustainability and community engagement. And by fusing an understanding of ecology, culture, and good design, we can dramatically improve on what have been strategies to go to from the past. And she's talking about rewilding as a hot topic, but in 2016, she was one of the few voices calling for a radical shift in more intuitive approach to the landscape around us. That year, she published her book, Wild by Design, Strategies for Creating Life-Enhancing Landscapes, recommended reading for anyone interested in landscape design. In the book, she guides the reader through her innovative approach to designing beautiful and meaningful landscapes under the heading of reinvention, restoration, conservation, regeneration, and expression. Her highly regarded projects in the US include her transformative design for the concrete jungle that was New York Queens Plaza. The award-winning project promoted a new idea of nature in one of the world's densest cities, ensuring that stormwater, wind, sun, and habitat merge within an urban infrastructure to create a more sustainable vision of urban life. So that particular scheme was creating pedestrian and cycling routes for people to engage with the landscape in New York. So that's really, really wonderful. She's also, I think she was one of the first people to actually, in China, in Sichuan, China, to create an ecological park which cleaned the polluted river biologically. Margie's nonprofit Wonder Landscape brings together artists, scientists, policymakers, and community members together to collaborate on alternatives to conventional conservation plans for wild landscapes. So she's working on a book at the moment called Restoration, and it'll be Restoration Connections, and delve into the design journey and the ethos, discovering what restoration means in ecological, creative, and personal terms. So she'll be interesting to listen to because she's still working and she's been doing this for a long, long time. And most of her projects would be sort of like 32 acres, 15 acres. They're not small projects. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. She's going to bring up a garden that she was working in 20 years ago in Mexico that goes from right down to the water, from the land right down to the water. And she planted it 20 years ago, but they've called her back again now because it's overrun with one plant. So she'll be regenerating that landscape as well. And she's also going to talk about a 3,000 acre preserve in Mexico. Yeah, so and the Western Ghats of India. I think that's actually a place where people go for yoga and things like that. So it should be very interesting to listen to.
For sure, big diverse range of subjects there. I suppose again, you're talking about going into New York City, a place where habitat will struggle because of the nature and the size and the scale of the city, and then trying to put something there, put a habitat there that, that will interconnect the people. As you said, it brings the cycling and the walking tracks through it, but also provides a habitat then for nature to take hold.
And also that particular scheme is SUDS as well. So it's taking excess water off to the street and holding it in that landscape, so that's, and also you got pollution as well. There's a train line that's very close to that now, and screeching trains were really irritating them. But apparently that's screening out that noise as well.
Noise pollution,
water pollution, air pollution, water, So it's doing a lot of work, which is, and then that comes back to plants. That's what's doing the work, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's an incredible list of speakers and a vast array of subjects and topics, but all coming back to the same thing of the interconnection between our cities, our people, our land, and the health of ecosystems and so on, and in turn, as you said, Marion, our own health and our own well-being is connected to that. You can't be disconnected from it.
Exactly. And also, just to say that the seminar, something as well that connects each of these, obviously is the plants, but also is the connection to gardeners. So like I know Lulu and Adam are very, very hot, and Neil as well, Neil Porteous, and Margie as well. They're very hot on dealing with head gardeners in places. So they don't just come along and design something and then leave and say, then they have to come back. So they're very, very keen to be connecting into the gardeners, to the people who own the property, or else to a head gardener if it's a very large property, and to work in tandem with them. So that, and again, the Wilding conference that they've just organized over in Manchester, Wilding Gardens, that's going to become that's going to, this time next year, I think everybody's going to be talking about that one. But again, it's just that our seminar is connecting in with all of that kind of stuff as well, but from the gardener point of view, and how important it is that the people who are doing the actual gardening are learning more about these kind of mechanisms as well. And because the gardeners are the ones who are doing all the hard work and keeping the plants alive, and that if there is something that's encroaching or taking over, that, the gardener is the one who sort of manages to manage that landscape. And so that's within the GLDA, we're always keen to be, connecting with other ecologists and gardeners, landscapers. It's not just about the design aspect of it. It's kind of way more important than just that. And, as Kinta was saying about our magazine, we have our Compass magazine. And when you become a member, you get Compass magazine twice a year. And all of these kind of people are writing in that magazine, it's the only real garden design magazine on the island of Ireland that we have. And it's a very, very good publication. But it's just to sort of say that there is lots of help and lots of information that we are generating, and just to make sure that people are aware of that and that they're able to access it.
Yeah. And as you said, in relation to the speakers, they're not going to somewhere and just designing a garden. They're talking to the head gardeners, and it goes back to something that you said at the very start. You're educating yourselves and in turn educating your clients. And it is that, again, passing this information down, trying to assimilate it out into the wider environment, so that people start to have more of an awareness, as we garden, as we design gardens, as we manage large spaces or small spaces, that we should have at the very least an eye on this thing, and try and improve the situation that we find ourselves in today. And it is, as you said, you could be negative, when you look at any of these documentaries and so on, you could be negative in relation to that, but there is definitely a huge surge coming from gardening and gardeners where they are looking to protect the environment and build ecosystems within their own gardens. And conferences like this or seminars like this really do reinforce that and help that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's the aim of it. I suppose we should also talk about the tickets, get down to the money part. So tickets are still available and you can get them on our website, which is glda.ie, obviously www before that.
Yeah.
We are, and what you get for your ticket is, well, you can buy one ticket where you get your year membership. And that's why I was talking about Compass magazine, because you get that magazine within your membership.
Yeah.
So it might seem like a lot of money, but it's really, really worthwhile. We're on social media, so we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, and we are on Facebook. And so at GLDA Ireland. And so please give us a follow, have a look, and you'll be able to see any updates and information about the seminar. With your ticket price, you get a hot lunch included on the day, and there's also 2 tea and coffee breaks either side of it. And the reason that we have that format is because it's not just a day to sit there in a dark room looking up at pretty pictures of things and get inspired, but because it's the beginning of the year, of the horticultural year. It's Saturday, the 28th of February,
Yeah.
2026 is our date. And it's all day, and it's in the Crown Plaza Hotel out in Santry. And again, everything's on the website and our social media. But it's a great way to meet old friends in the gardening industry and also for networking. Like, you
Yeah.
know, lots of people meet different landscapers there. Or we also have sponsorship, product sponsors there. So we have stands on the day, you know, talking about, so for example, we've got Ali Tex over from the UK talking about their beautiful glass houses. Enrich will be there. They'll be talking, I'm showing different types of soils that they sell.
Hmm.
The Gutter Bookshop are there from down in Temple Bar in Dublin, and they will be there selling books, which is always the best place. Everybody loves that. You come away with way too many books.
It was a busy stand last year.
It's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
jammed. Yeah, they're so amazing. Every time we, you know, email them, and you're going to do the seminar this year? Yes, of course we are, you know.
Mm.
And it's great because they wouldn't be known as a gardening bookshop, you know, in
Yeah.
the way that maybe the Rathgar bookshop was years and years and years ago before they
Yeah.
closed down. So
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing that the Gutter Bookshop are getting this new kind of following, if you like.
And they had a huge selection of books. Like obviously, the recent gardening books are always in all the bookshops.
Yeah,
But they had a selection of books across different channels, countries,
yeah.
topics, even some obscure stuff that I found really interesting. And yeah, there was a big selection and it was
Sounds
the
like
busy.
you were bitten by a few of those each
Yeah,
visit
yeah, for
home.
sure. Yeah.
We have to mention our big our other sponsor as well, which is Board Bia. So Board
Mm.
Bia are very kindly they give us offer us a financial sponsorship every year, which without that we wouldn't be able to put this seminar on. It's an expensive thing to do. And then we've also got Chagas, our product sponsor this year.
Yeah.
They'll be coming up and talking about the different horticulture and gardening courses that they supply out in the Botanic Gardens. So that's going to be good. And of course, like all of the top gardeners that have come out of this country, like Jimmy Blake and Séamus O'Brien, Paul Martin, Jim McGavin, we could go on and on, but they've all come out of the Botanic Gardens, out of
Yeah.
the Chagas course. So yeah, so that's what it is. So glda.ie for tickets.
For tickets, yeah. And it's definitely a great day out. And as Marion said, from a networking point of view or from meeting people point of view, you'll meet a lot of people there, a lot of interesting people, old friends and potential new friends. So it's a nice day out as well as, from an education perspective, a very, very informative and on the cutting edge of the conversations around garden design. So again, a brave topic this year and an important topic. Before we start to close off, just both of you run your own practices. Anything that we're seeing in terms of trends or
Oh yeah. Well, at the moment, what's interesting is that during the planning application process, a lot of the councils are asking for a lot more room underground to keep, so our trees will survive. So they're looking at 12 cubic meters underground that we have to supply. And you can do that through crates and engineered soil. Also, those tree pits can act as SUDS as well. That's one big thing. And what's happened to me in the last couple of weeks is that a garden I'm working on turns out that it's going to have serious water problems. So I'm working with the engineers on doing one of those systems. So that's coming to the fore now. And it has to be able to hold. So we're putting in rain gardens, which is exactly what we were talking about last year. And the rain gardens will be above ground and the crates will be underground. So there won't be an issue of flooding. So it's interesting. But this particular site is in D4, and D4 has a reputation of having a high water table.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that really challenging and interesting projects to work on. So that's what I'm seeing at the moment, apart from the mixture of using natives and non-natives as well.
Yeah. That conversation is raging on at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Marion? Anything that you're seeing that's
well, I have to say that since COVID, I do find that clients are, I don't have to twist people's arms anymore in terms of having maybe, ratio of 2/3 to planting to 1/3 of hard landscaping anymore. Especially, I would get a lot of gardens as well in urban areas because I'm based in Dublin 6. So the SUDS thing, the water thing is a massive, massive concern, that we have to be building gardens or providing places for that water to soak into, to take the water runoff off roofs, slowing the water down, the rainwater down,
yeah.
And we're constantly, doing different CPDs and different courses on learning how to make and design rain gardens and lots of other systems, so it's exciting, but yeah, you're on top of, you have to be on top of your game all the time. You're always learning something new. So it's still after 17 years in business this year, it's still getting exciting. Yes.
That's good. It's good that there's always something new. It's funny that both of you mentioned as, being things that are coming up and are more and more topical. And you're talking about SUDS particularly. Over the last week, we've had unbelievable rain, and I was just thinking about it the other evening. I was driving from a town area, 15 minutes out to my own house, and everywhere I went, flowing off the roads, flowing off the car parks, flowing out of people's driveways was water, and you're just thinking up to yourself, this is all pushing further down the line, and it's just piling in somewhere down the line. And it really is. Yeah, it's definitely important. The more it can be slowed down, and you mentioned the beavers earlier on, and people listening might be saying, beavers, like, what's that got to do with us? But when you start to think about it, and you guys have to think about it because you're at the design stage, you're at that engineering point, from an engineering point of view, all of that has to be starting to be taken into account now. But it is so important. We've created all these car parks, roads. And we just get water moving so fast that it's doing harm everywhere, washing away soil and so on. So it's really important. Again, that was the topic of last year's seminar, and it was, the speakers were brilliant and showed real world examples of how to utilize that water, how to slow it down, and how to create something with it that serves a function, solves a problem, and also becomes an ecosystem. So it's
interesting as well because the councils are making people through planning applications and making you look, deal with the SUDS at planning application stage rather than, and I think it's brilliant. And then the solutions. I remember doing a job for a client last year in a car park in Tulla. And I'm saying, you're really going to have to put SUDS intervention into this job, and he's going, no, we don't want to pay for it. I said, okay, I'm advising you that this will not go through, unless you deal with that. And of course, they said, we don't want to deal with this. It's going to get, and it bounced back again, of course. And for me, it was really good as a landscape architect to put in solutions for that, And then what was interesting about that planning applications, they wanted us to connect it to the wider landscape. So even though you're in an urban area, that urban area is connected to a river going through it, and that river goes to the sea, and it comes from the mountains. And so that's the way we've got to think. It's not just our little patch. It's, it's all everywhere.
The
So
interconnection of all things.
Hey, there you go. I was just
yeah,
going to say it.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah,
that's
no,
with the river. It's the perfect example because our waste goes into the river.
yeah,
That the river has to come from somewhere and it moves down to another area.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and it goes
yeah,
to the sea. Yeah, so it's really interesting, and it's just to get people to think on that scale. It's
yeah,
not just yeah.
yeah.
So
No, it really is, and again, the seminar name, the speakers, they're forward thinking. They are providing solutions, providing ideas, provoking thought, provoking conversation. And I think, again, as I said at the start, brave and very, very important. So, um, Marion and Kinta, thank you very, very much for coming on, telling us about the
thanks very much,
seminar.
John.
Very
Um,
welcome. Our pleasure.
yeah, it's been really interesting chat, and thank you very much for coming on
Yeah, it's
Master
been
My
great
Garden
chatting. Thanks
podcast.
very much, John. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
So that's been this week's episode. A huge thanks to Kinta and Marion for coming on. Again, as I said, the topics, from a gardening perspective, you might at times look at things like this and think, where's the connection between that and our gardens? But there is real connection. Plants are at the heart of everything. Last year's topic of SUDS, again, is really important within gardens across the country. And again, this year's topic is, it's, as I said, thought provoking and important and brave as well, because, there's there's changes that need to happen within garden design, within landscape design, and the GLDA seminar is definitely tackling and talking about those issues. So worth checking out. Tickets still available on GLDA's website, so that's www.glda.ie, and options there around membership as well for the year, or just seminar ticket as well. But it's a really great day out, very, very good speakers, and well worth checking out. And that's been this week's episode. Thanks for listening. And until the next time, happy gardening.